The training room was alive with light and sound. Panels blinked and soft humming filled the air. Rows of screens showed strange landscapes, each one projecting a dangerous world, filled with predators that no ordinary being could face without careful planning. Alien cadets filled the room, their voices sharp and urgent. They moved quickly, scribbling notes, tapping controls and pointing at displays. Every one of them tried to outdo the other, their bodies tense with nervous energy. The instructor, tall and imposing with smooth green skin and eyes that glimmered like polished stones, paced in front of them. 3 ways to stop it, he barked, his voice echoing through the metallic room. You have 10 minutes. The cadets froze for a moment, then immediately turned to their panels. Fingers and claws moved over the controls, drawing traps, selecting weapons and calculating complex attack patterns. Some suggested fire traps. Others suggested high-frequency energy nets. A few of the older cadets whispered about using poison or toxic clouds. The room became a jumble of chaos and calculation. In the corner, away from the noise, sat Lucy. She was human, smaller and softer than the alien cadets around her. Her hair fell gently over her forehead, and her hands rested lightly on the table in front of her. Unlike the others, she didn't rush or scribble notes frantically. She didn't shout instructions or make complicated plans. She simply watched. The predator, a shadowy figure on the main display, was already moving. Its body was long and sleek, rippling with muscle beneath dark, glinting scales. Its eyes glowed faintly red, scanning, judging, and calculating the room it was about to enter. Lucy's gaze followed it closely. She noticed the way it flexed its claws, the tiny twitch in its tail, the slow deliberate circling of its prey. It was not blind, not stupid, not mindless. It was careful and patient. Other cadets did not see what she saw. They were focused on the weapons, the traps, the energy shields. Alaric, a tall alien with 4 arms and green stripes, shouted, "We need nets. Quick. It's faster than all of us." "No," hissed Sira, her purple skin glinting in the lights. "Fire. Fire will burn it before it moves again." The instructor watched silently for a moment, his expression unreadable. He had trained thousands of cadets and most of them panicked under pressure. He expected chaos. But Lucy's quiet observation intrigued him. Unlike the others, she did not panic. She did not rush. She seemed to understand something. Lucy tilted her head slightly. She noticed how the predator moved differently from the simulations she had seen before. Most creatures in these exercises moved predictably. They chased, they struck, they defended, but this one hesitated in small, strange ways. Its head would tilt, its claws would pause mid-step. It was almost as if it was testing its surroundings, feeling out the area before committing to an attack. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. The human's instincts for survival were different. Lucy could feel tension in the room, the same tension that came when someone had to make a choice between fighting or running. Her mind ran through possibilities. What if the predator could anticipate the traps? What if it could see through fire or nets or poison? What would it do then? Alaric waved his hands frantically, pointing at a virtual grid. "It will avoid this corner. Set up another trap here, here, and here." Sira stomped her foot. "You don't understand. We need more energy. More intensity." Lucy didn't move. She simply watched. She saw the predator lift its head, sensing the vibration of the room through the simulation floor. Its eyes flicked toward the corners, the walls, the ceiling. The predators in her own training had never been like this. They were always aggressive, always rushing. But this one was calm. Cool. Patient. The instructor finally spoke, his voice cutting through the clamor. "Enough chatter. Show me your solutions." The aliens presented their plans, each more complex than the last. Nets, firewalls, electric grids, smoke screens, explosive charges. Some even suggested combining all the traps at once. Each idea seemed clever until Lucy noticed the flaw. The predator would not fall for any of these. Its movements were too precise. Its senses too sharp. It did not react the way most creatures did. Lucy quietly raised her hand. The instructor looked at her, one eyebrow raised. "Human, what do you suggest?" She leaned back in her chair, her gaze never leaving the predator on the screen. "I'm not sure yet," she said softly. The room fell silent. Alien cadets turned toward her, some with confusion, some with irritation. They had expected her to struggle, to panic, to throw out some weak idea. But she was calm, focused, watching. "Not sure." Alaric sneered. "We don't have time to not be sure." Lucy shook her head slowly. "I'm observing. I need to understand it first." The instructor's eyes glimmered. He had seen many students fail because they acted before they thought. Humans were rare in the galaxy, and he had heard rumors of their strange ways, their instincts, and their ability to survive in impossible situations. Lucy seemed to be one of them. Time passed. The aliens grew impatient. The predator crept closer in the simulation, its claws leaving faint scratches on the floor as it approached the traps the cadets had placed. Each trap triggered, but the predator avoided them effortlessly. Fire ignited and fizzled out as it leapt around the flames. Nets snapped and fell uselessly as it slipped through gaps the cadets had not considered. Poisonous clouds drifted harmlessly, ignored by the predator's careful breathing. The cadets began to sweat. Syrah's tail twitched nervously. It's adapting faster than we can predict, she said, panic creeping into her voice. Alaric's 4 hands shook as he tried to adjust the controls. We need. Stop, Lucy said softly. Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Everyone froze. Even the instructor's eyes locked on her. What? Syrah demanded. Stop what? Stop acting as if we are the hunters, Lucy said. She leaned forward. We need to see what it sees. Understand how it thinks. Wait for it to make a mistake and then we act. A murmur ran through the room. The aliens had never heard a human speak like this. Most acted with force, with speed, with brute power. Lucy spoke with patience, with understanding, with observation. The predator moved again, slow and careful. Lucy's eyes followed every twitch of its muscles. She noticed how it paused slightly when it reached the corner, how its tail flicked left and right, testing the space, measuring. Other cadets missed these details because they were too busy thinking about weapons, about traps, about attack sequences. Lucy's mind worked quickly, quietly. She imagined herself as the predator, predicting its next steps. She calculated the timing, the space, the moment when it would be vulnerable. Her fingers hovered over the console, ready to place a single small trap, something subtle, something invisible. The instructor stepped closer, intrigued. Interesting, he muttered. You are seeing what others cannot. But can you act fast enough? Lucy didn't answer. She only watched. The predator circled again, its eyes glowing faintly. Each step was precise, careful, patient. But it was predictable to her now because she thought like it, understood it, and did not rush. The simulation began in earnest. The air in the training room felt heavier now, thick with tension. The predator moved with a silent, deadly grace, gliding from shadow to shadow as if it was part of the darkness itself. Its long, sleek body curved around corners, its claws barely making a sound as they touched the floor. It seemed to sense every trap before it reached it, avoiding nets, leaping over fire, and steering clear of energy grids that had been laid out by the frantic cadets. Alaric shouted again, panic in his voice. Use fire. Net it. Poison it. Quick. His 4 arms flailed as he pressed buttons, trying to create more hazards in its path. Syrah hissed, her tail whipping behind her. It's too fast. Nothing will stop it. Why won't it fall for anything? The instructor stood to the side, observing in silence, his glowing eyes sharp. He had seen countless cadets fail, and he had seen many creatures simulated in this room, but this predator was different. It was intelligent, precise, almost eerily aware of its surroundings. And the human Lucy remained calm. She did not panic. She did not rush to throw traps in its path or call for weapons. She simply watched. The predator paused at the edge of a shadow, its head tilting as it sniffed the air. Its glowing eyes scanned the room, flicking from one corner to another, assessing every detail. Lucy noticed the tiny shifts in its body, the way its claws spread slightly before stepping, the faint vibration it gave off as it prepared to strike. Alaric groaned, shaking his head. It's reading us. Every move we make, it predicts. Focus on the basics. Syrah barked. We trap it or we fail. Lucy leaned back slightly, her eyes narrowing. The predator hesitated, sensing her calm, steady presence. Unlike the others, she didn't shout or move with frantic energy. She wasn't a threat, it was as if the predator could feel that. But there was something different in her presence, something sharp and calculating. For a moment, the predator paused completely, its claws frozen in the shadow. The instructor stepped closer, his long green fingers steepling. Interesting, he muttered. It knows she is not like the others. The human's mind, it is quiet but sharp. Lucy studied the predator closely. It was not just moving to hunt, it was calculating. Each step it took was measured. Each pause had a reason. It was a hunter, yes, but one that could adapt to anything in its environment. She saw the gaps in the aliens' traps, the spaces where the nets were too wide, the places where the fire could be avoided with a single leap. Alaric slammed his hands on the console. No. None of this works. Every time I think we've trapped it, it slips past. Syrah's tail whipped again and she muttered under her breath, "We're going to fail. We're all going to fail." Lucy remained still. She did not rush. She did not panic. She thought like the predator, not like the cadets. She imagined herself moving in its sleek body, feeling the vibrations in the floor, sensing the traps before they were sprung. She imagined the predator's mind as a puzzle, a pattern that could be predicted. The predator moved again, gliding across the room. It leapt over a fire trap with smooth precision, its body curling mid-air to avoid touching the ground. The aliens shouted and cursed, their voices a tangle of fear and frustration. Lucy's lips pressed together. She noticed a small flaw, an almost invisible shift in the predator's timing. Its movements were perfect, nearly flawless, but there was a tiny moment when it paused too long after turning a corner, a fraction of a second where it underestimated its path. That small detail was enough for her. She adjusted her console slightly, placing a subtle signal in the simulation that would lure the predator into a narrow corridor. She did not shout, she did not call attention to herself. She simply waited, eyes locked on the predator, heart steady, mind clear. The predator approached the corridor, moving with the same careful grace. It paused, sensing the change in its environment. Its claws clicked softly against the floor. Lucy held her breath. She could feel every muscle in the predator's body, every twitch, every calculated step. Alaric groaned, looking at Lucy with disbelief. How can she see what it's thinking? Syrah frowned, her purple skin shimmering in the lights. It's impossible. None of the sensors can read it this well. The instructor smiled faintly. Humans are often underestimated, he said quietly. They see patterns others cannot. They anticipate danger without panicking. Lucy's eyes remained fixed on the predator. She did not move a muscle. She did not signal anyone. She simply waited. The predator, sensing a shift in the room, tilted its head again. Its glowing eyes flicked toward her for a brief moment. It hesitated. There was caution in its movement, a recognition that something in the room was different. The other cadets shouted again, trying to force their weapons into action, trying to trap the creature. But each move was predictable. The predator avoided every trap, every fire, every net. It was like water flowing around stones, smooth and unstoppable. Lucy, however, saw the opportunity. She adjusted her console slightly, nudging the predator toward the narrow corridor. She imagined the predator moving through it, thinking she was giving it a free path. The predator entered, body sleek, claws clicking softly. It was careful, but it did not detect the subtle adjustment she had made. The room was tense. Every cadet held their breath, though most did not understand why. Alaric's hands shook. It's walking into a trap. Syrah's tail whipped furiously. Impossible. How did she? Lucy remained calm. Her eyes followed every movement of the predator as it entered the corridor. Her mind predicted every step it would take, every pause it would make. She did not rush. She did not shout. She only waited, calculating, watching, understanding. The predator hesitated in the corridor for a moment, sensing something strange. Its glowing eyes flicked around, searching for danger. Then, just as Lucy had predicted, it stepped slightly off-center, and a small trap she had subtly triggered sprang to life. A soft net dropped down, catching the predator's midsection just enough to slow it, not to harm it, but to control it. The aliens gasped. Alaric's four hands froze over the console. No, that's impossible. Syrah's tail dropped, her body rigid. How did she do that? The instructor nodded slowly, watching the predator struggle slightly in the trap. Humans, he said softly, have a way of seeing the world differently. They do not rely on brute force alone. They anticipate, they calculate, and they wait. And when they act perfectly. Lucy leaned back, eyes never leaving the predator. She had not used fire or poison or multiple nets. She had only used patience, observation, and a single, carefully timed action. The predator had been slowed, caught, and controlled. Around her, the alien cadets stared, some with awe, some with disbelief, some with fear. They had spent the last minutes shouting, panicking, and trying everything, yet a human, quiet, calm, unassuming, had done what they could not. The predator struggled briefly in the net, its eyes glowing with frustration, but Lucy did not move. She waited, her mind already calculating the next step, already predicting its reactions. The instructor finally spoke, his voice low but firm. Observe everyone. This is why humans survive in places others cannot. Not because of strength, not because of speed, but because of the mind. The mind is a weapon more powerful than any claw or fire. Alaric swallowed hard. Syrah's tail twitched nervously. The other cadets, who had mocked humans for their small size and fragile bodies, were silent. They understood something they had never understood before. Lucy's eyes stayed on the predator. She did not smile. She did not boast. She simply continued to watch, calm, patient, and ready for what would come next. The predator, slowed but not defeated, hissed softly. Its glowing eyes flicked back and forth, trying to understand how it had been caught. And Lucy, human Lucy, simply observed, already thinking one step ahead. The instructor leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Your turn, human. 3 ways. Lucy tilted her head slightly, her eyes calm and steady. She did not flinch. She did not hesitate. She shook her head slowly. What if the predator isn't the one hunting? She said, her voice quiet but firm. The room froze. Alien stopped mid-gesture. Syrah's tail twitched in disbelief. Alaric's 4 hands stilled above the controls. Even the instructor leaned back slightly, surprise flickering across his sharp features. A tense silence fell over the room, broken only by the soft hum of the simulation. The cadets exchanged worried glances. Could she mean they were the prey? What do you mean? Alaric demanded, his voice cracking with tension. Lucy's gaze swept over the room. She noticed every reaction, every twitch, every flick of the eyes. Think about it, she said. Every trap we set, every fire, every net, every plan, it assumes the predator is hunting, trying to attack us. But what if it isn't? What if it's waiting for us to make a mistake? Syrah's tail twitched harder. That doesn't make sense. All predators in the simulation hunt. Lucy shook her head. Not all. Some predators don't hunt like that. Some predators test, study, and let the prey make the first move. The ones that survive longest aren't the strongest, they're the smartest. The ones who strike last. The instructor's eyes gleamed, a mixture of curiosity and respect. Go on, human, he said. Explain. Lucy's fingers hovered over her console. She leaned forward slightly, voice calm but commanding. We are so focused on attacking, on trapping, that we forget to watch. We forget to think like the predator. We assume we are safe, that it will make the first move. But it may be watching us, learning from us, waiting for us to slip. And that is the moment it will strike. The alien cadets looked at her in disbelief. You're saying the predator is smarter than us? Syrah asked. No, Lucy said softly. I'm saying it is not hunting us the way we expect. And if we understand that, we can control it. Alaric groaned, frustration twisting his face. Control it? Oh, we can't even trap it properly. Lucy tilted her head, a faint smile forming. By thinking like it. By predicting, by understanding, by waiting for the right moment. Not rushing, not panicking. Watching. Learning. Then acting. The instructor leaned back in his chair, folding his long green fingers. He had seen humans before, but rarely with this kind of clarity under pressure. Most relied on instinct or panic. Lucy relied on observation, patience, and strategy. Her calm presence was like a shield in the chaos of the room. The predator in the simulation moved again, slower this time, sensing the tension. It had not yet attacked, but its glowing eyes flicked from cadet to cadet. It paused as if testing the room, noting every movement. Lucy noticed the subtle flick of its claws, the tiny tilt of its head, the quiet shift of its body. Every detail mattered. Every small gesture told a story. She leaned closer to her console. It's watching us now, she said. It's learning just like we are learning. But it expects us to act first. That is the mistake we cannot make. Syrah narrowed her eyes. You're insane. You want us to do nothing? No, Lucy said calm and firm. I want us to act smart. We observe. We predict. We wait. And then we act together at the exact right moment. Alaric shook his head, muttering, We don't have time for this. We'll fail before we do anything. The instructor held up a hand, silencing the room. Let her speak. Let her explain. Humans are strange, yes, but sometimes, strange works. Lucy nodded slightly. She tapped her console, highlighting the predator's movement patterns on the main screen. See this, she said. It pauses before each turn. It moves carefully around corners. It doesn't rush. Every step is measured. It tests the space, evaluates, and then continues. That is how it survives. That is how it dominates. The cadets leaned in, some reluctantly. Alaric frowned. So, what? We just watch it. Not just watch, Lucy said. We understand it. We learn its patterns. And then we choose the moment to act. One precise action is stronger than 10 hasty attacks. One clever trap is better than 100 failed ones. If we act too early, we fail. If we act too late, we fail. But if we act at the exact right moment, she paused, letting her words sink in, we succeed. The predator moved again, slower this time. Lucy's eyes followed its glowing red gaze, noting every subtle twitch. It sniffed the air, its claws scratching lightly against the floor. It circled a trap, testing it, not triggered by the threat, only by curiosity. Lucy's mind worked quickly. She imagined herself as the predator. She imagined its thoughts, its reasoning, its instincts. She could almost feel its mind, calculating, waiting, learning from the room, learning from the aliens, learning from her. This is why humans survive, she said softly, almost to herself. Not because we are stronger. Not because we are faster. But because we see the mistakes others make. Because we learn. Because we wait. And because we act at the right time. The instructor's eyes gleamed with approval. She speaks the truth, he said. Too many cadets rush. Too many rely on brute force. But the mind can dominate even the fiercest predator. Syrah's tail twitched nervously. So, we just wait? And let it come to us. Yes, Lucy said. We wait, we observe, we understand. Then we act with precision. The predator may be stronger, faster, sharper, but it is still predictable if you watch carefully. And if you understand it, it becomes ours to control. Alaric shook his head in disbelief. I don't believe this. One human, controlling it with patience. Lucy did not answer. She simply continued to watch the predator. Her calm stare seemed to unsettle it, even in the simulation. The predator paused again, claws flexing, body tense. It was aware now, sensing something different. Something sharp, something intelligent. Something it could not read. The instructor nodded slowly. Exactly. That is why humans survive in ways other species do not. They turn fear into strategy. They turn danger into opportunity. And they do it quietly, without noise, without panic. Watch, learn, and act. That is the human way. Lucy's eyes never left the predator. She was already thinking ahead, predicting the next steps, anticipating its reactions. The aliens, meanwhile, were silent, watching her, realizing that their frantic shouting and rapid action could never match her quiet intelligence. The predator hissed softly, sensing the change in the room. Its glowing eyes flicked from cadet to cadet, searching, analyzing, calculating. It paused mid-step, unsure. And Lucy, human Lucy, simply waited, calm and patient, ready to act when the moment was perfect. Lucy stepped lightly across the training room, her movements quiet but deliberate. She didn't rush. She didn't shout instructions or press multiple buttons at once like the others. Instead, she carried a small, reflective panel, a mirror, from the equipment rack and positioned it carefully along the predator's expected path. The aliens around her froze, unsure of what she was doing. Alaric's four hands hovered mid-air, and Syrah's tail twitched nervously. A mirror? Syrah whispered. How can that stop it? Lucy didn't answer. She focused, her eyes following the predator as it slithered through the shadows of the simulation. Its movements were fluid, precise, and deliberate. Every step, every pause, every twitch of its tail was predictable now, but only because Lucy had spent minutes observing it, calculating its patterns and thinking like it. The predator reached the corridor she had prepared earlier. Its glowing red eyes flicked over the mirror. For a moment it paused, unsure. Its reflection shimmered back at it, another hunter in its path. The predator hissed softly, claws flexing as it tilted its head, trying to understand the new element in its environment. Lucy's lips pressed together. She mirrored its movements with her own body, shifting slightly as it moved, anticipating its strikes. She was not just watching, it was as if she had become part of the predator's mind, thinking its thoughts, predicting its steps, feeling the vibrations it felt as it tested its surroundings. The predator struck at the reflection instinctively, thinking it had found another hunter. Its claws hit the mirrored surface, which had been anchored securely, and it bounced back slightly, off balance. Lucy's careful observation had given her an advantage. She had created the trap, not with fire or poison or nets, but with patience, understanding, and a subtle trick. The alien cadets gasped. Alaric's four hands flew up in disbelief. How did she do that? He muttered. Syrah's tail flicked nervously. Impossible. It shouldn't be fooled by a mirror. The instructor stepped closer, green eyes glowing faintly. She's not using brute force. She is using understanding, observation, anticipation. That is why humans survive where others fail. Lucy did not flinch under the attention. She continued to move lightly, keeping herself hidden in the simulation's shadows. Her eyes never left the predator. It stumbled slightly after striking the mirror, claws scraping against the floor as it recalculated its next steps. Lucy waited. Patience was her weapon. The other cadets shouted instructions, moving controls, trying to regain control of the situation. Nets were fired, fire traps ignited, smoke poured into the room. The predator dodged each one easily, moving with uncanny precision. Each time it narrowly avoided a hazard, it paused, seeming to learn from its surroundings. Lucy noticed a subtle change in its behavior. Its steps had become slightly predictable now, small patterns emerging from the way it tested each trap. She adjusted her mirror slightly, angling it to reflect a safe path. The predator, thinking it had a free path, slithered toward the mirrored corridor. Sarah gasped. It's going right into... Before she could finish, the predator stumbled slightly, catching its reflection in the mirror again. Its claws flexed, tail flicked, and for the first time, it hesitated in a way that showed confusion. Lucy smiled faintly. One small adjustment had given her complete control over its movement. The instructor's eyes glimmered with approval. Notice how she moves with it, not against it. She does not attack blindly. She understands. She predicts. She waits. And then, the predator makes the mistake for her. Lucy's mind worked quickly. She imagined every next move the predator might make, every pause, every slight miscalculation. She shifted her body subtly, letting it see her in the reflection at just the right angles. She moved like water, soft and fluid, never aggressive, never rushed. The predator's instincts reacted naturally, and every step it took brought it closer to the trap she had designed. Alaric shook his head in disbelief. I don't understand. It shouldn't be this simple. Lucy didn't reply. She focused entirely on the predator. Its claws scratched lightly against the floor, its eyes flicked toward every shadow. Every movement it made was mirrored in her mind. She had slowed it down, not with speed or power, but with cleverness and precision. The predator reached the final corridor Lucy had prepared. Its body flexed, muscles tense, eyes scanning for threats. Lucy had positioned another mirror at the far end, angled to reflect its previous path. The predator saw its own reflection again, thinking another hunter was waiting ahead. It hesitated, claws clicking lightly. Then, instinctively, it adjusted its stride, moving slightly off balance. Lucy triggered a subtle mechanism on her console. A small net fell from the ceiling, but it was not obvious. It did not trap the predator immediately, it only slowed it, enough to give her control over its movements. The predator hissed, claws scraping against the floor as it tried to regain balance. But every adjustment it made was anticipated by Lucy. She had predicted its path perfectly, using only observation and patience. The aliens around her stared in awe. Alaric's jaw dropped, his forehands frozen mid-air. Sarah's tail whipped nervously, unable to hide her amazement. How can one human do this?" she whispered. The instructor nodded slowly, a faint smile on his face. "Because she is thinking like the predator. Not like the cadets. Not like a soldier. But like a hunter who knows when to wait, when to act, and when to observe. That is the human advantage." Lucy's eyes remained focused. She did not celebrate. She did not raise her hands in victory. She only watched, guiding the predator's steps with subtle cues, slight movements, and careful positioning. The predator moved through the corridor, stumbling slightly at each reflection, miscalculating its path, and Lucy adjusted silently, like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Every alien cadet in the room realized the difference between Lucy and themselves. They had rushed, shouted, and relied on brute force. They had set traps, fired weapons, and created hazards. But the predator had avoided them all easily. Lucy had done nothing but observe, understand, and wait. The predator finally reached the center of the corridor. Its claws scraped against the floor as it paused, body tense, eyes flicking to every corner. Lucy mirrored its movements subtly, shifting herself slightly to guide it into the final part of the trap. And then, with perfect timing, she triggered the net. It fell smoothly, catching the predator mid-stride, slowing it completely without harming it. The predator hissed, flexing, struggling, but it could not break free. Its glowing red eyes darted around, trying to understand how it had been trapped. And Lucy, calm and patient, simply watched. Alaric's forehands shook in disbelief. I can't believe it. She did it, with mirrors? Sarah's tail twitched nervously. No fire, no nets, no traps, just her, and her mind. The instructor stepped forward, his green eyes gleaming. Yes, that is why humans are rare. They survive not by strength alone, but by understanding, by observation, and by patience. And when they act perfectly. Lucy leaned back, eyes still on the predator. She had not used weapons, not relied on complicated machinery, not rushed to trap it. She had used her mind, her observation, and her understanding of the predator's behavior. She had mirrored it, anticipated it, and let it make its mistakes. The result was complete control. The predator hissed again, its glowing eyes darting around, trapped but unharmed. It flexed its claws, testing the net, but Lucy's planning had accounted for every movement. Every step it made had been predicted. Every reaction had been anticipated. The room was silent. Even Alaric and Syrah, normally loud and frantic, stared in awe. They could not deny it. One human had outsmarted a predator that all of them had struggled with. One human, with patience and understanding, had controlled a creature that seemed unbeatable. The instructor finally spoke, his voice calm but full of respect. Remember this, cadets. Brute strength wins battles, yes. Fire and weapons can be powerful. But sometimes, the mind alone can control the strongest force. Observation, patience, and understanding, these are the tools of survival. And humans excel at these. Lucy's eyes remained on the predator, never leaving its form. She did not boast. She did not celebrate. She had guided it with thought, not force, and that was enough. Around her, the alien cadets understood something they had never understood before. Humans were different. Humans survived in ways others could not. The predator struggled briefly in the net, claws flexing, tail flicking. But Lucy simply waited. She had done her job. Every movement had been calculated, every step anticipated. She had done nothing complicated, nothing flashy, nothing dangerous. She had only understood, observed, and guided. And it had worked perfectly. The predator hissed and twisted in the net, claws scraping the floor as it tried to free itself. Its glowing red eyes darted wildly, scanning the room for any escape. Around it, alien cadets shouted and gestured frantically, but Lucy remained calm, her focus entirely on the creature in front of her. She did not panic. She did not rush. She only watched, thinking several steps ahead. Every movement of the predator had a pattern, subtle but there. She had studied it carefully, noted every pause, every hesitation, every slight twitch of muscle. Its instincts were strong, its speed impressive, but Lucy understood something the aliens did not. Its mind, clever as it was, could be anticipated. She adjusted the console slightly, opening the containment field at just the right angle. The field was a soft, glowing cage designed to trap dangerous creatures safely. To the untrained eye, it looked like any other mechanism in the simulation. But Lucy knew exactly how the predator would react to the changes she made. Alaric's 4 hands froze as he watched. She's doing it again, he muttered. Controlling it with just a few movements. Syrah's tail twitched nervously. It shouldn't be possible. None of us could get it this close, and alive. Lucy's eyes followed the predator's movement. It was testing the space, flexing its claws, circling, unsure of the safest path. She mirrored its steps in her mind, imagining its thoughts, imagining what it considered safe and what it did not. Then, at exactly the right moment, she nudged the controls. The containment field shimmered, expanding silently but perfectly into the predator's path. The predator hesitated, sensing the shift. Its instincts screamed danger, but curiosity and calculation forced it forward. With a smooth, quick motion, it slithered into the glowing field. Almost immediately, the energy surrounded it, harmless but unbreakable. Its claws scraped and thrashed, its body twisting, but it could not escape. The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the containment field. Even the instructor paused, his eyes narrowing as he observed Lucy's actions. He had seen hundreds of cadets attempt this simulation. Most had panicked, rushing to attack, to trap, to use brute force. None had succeeded as Lucy had. None had done it so quietly, so efficiently, so perfectly. Lucy leaned back slightly, her hands still resting lightly on the console. She did not celebrate. She did not raise her arms. She simply observed the predator, watching its every reaction, noting the flick of its tail and the flex of its claws. She had led it here, not with force, not with complicated traps, but with understanding, patience, and observation. The alien cadets exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and awe. Alaric's jaw dropped. I can't believe it, he said softly. She's done what we couldn't do, and without even touching it directly. Syrah's tail twitched nervously. It's alive, completely alive, and trapped. She predicted everything it would do. The instructor nodded slowly, green eyes gleaming. Humans, you see the world differently. You do not rely on brute strength alone. You study, you anticipate, and you act at the precise moment. That is why you survive in situations where others fail. Lucy's lips pressed together. She did not speak. She let her actions speak for themselves. She had turned the predator's strength, its speed, its intelligence into her own advantage. She had made it follow her plan without it even realizing she had a plan. The predator thrashed briefly, its claws striking the containment field with sharp clicks. Its glowing red eyes scanned for any weakness. But Lucy had accounted for every possibility. Every movement it made had been predicted. Every reaction anticipated. It could not escape. Alaric shook his head, staring at Lucy in disbelief. I don't understand. One human, controlling it so easily. Syrah's tail drooped. It's not just control. It's understanding. She knows it. She thinks like it. She moves like it. And she does it calmly without fear. The instructor's voice cut through the room, calm and commanding. Notice how she did not attack blindly. She did not rush. She did not rely on strength or weapons. She studied, she observed, she waited, and then she acted. That is the human way. That is what makes them extraordinary. The predator thrashed again, trying to twist and free itself from the glowing field. But every twist, every turn, was anticipated by Lucy. She adjusted the field slightly, just enough to redirect its movements, never harming it, only controlling it. Its movements slowed, frustration building in its eyes. The alien cadets stared in silence, unable to hide their awe. Veteran cadets who had seen hundreds of simulations were speechless. None had ever seen such control. None had ever seen a creature so strong and fast subdued so calmly and efficiently. Lucy leaned forward slightly, watching the predator's every move. She had prepared for this moment, predicted it even, and now she allowed the creature to thrash for a few moments before it settled. She wanted it alive but contained, for observation, for learning, and to prove a point. The mind could dominate strength. Alaric whispered under his breath, I can't believe a single human outsmarted it all. Syrah's tail flicked slowly. It's not just skill, it's instinct, strategy, patience. She's like nothing I've ever seen. The instructor's gaze lingered on Lucy. You see the world differently. You anticipate. You calculate. You observe. And when the time comes, you act perfectly. That is why humans survive where other species struggle. That is why you are extraordinary. Lucy did not respond. She did not need to. Her calm focus, her quiet intelligence, and her perfect timing had spoken louder than words ever could. She had demonstrated that survival was not about rushing or using brute force. It was about thinking, observing, and acting at the right moment. The predator finally settled, claws scraping softly against the floor as it realized it could not escape. Its glowing red eyes flicked around the room, aware but contained. It thrashed slightly one last time and then paused, forced to acknowledge its situation. Lucy had led it here. She had predicted every movement, every reaction, and controlled it without a single misstep. Alaric shook his head again, muttering, one human, just one, and she's better than all of us combined. Syrah's tail twitched nervously. I never thought I would see this. A human, guiding a predator without weapons or traps. Just thought and patience. Just understanding. The instructor nodded once more, slowly. Remember this, cadets. Strength is temporary. Speed is temporary. Instinct can be sharp, yes. But the mind is permanent. And humans excel at using it when it matters most. Lucy leaned back in her chair, eyes still on the predator. She did not smile. She did not boast. She had done what needed to be done. She had acted precisely, efficiently, and without fear. The predator was trapped, alive and contained, proof of her careful observation and calculated actions. The alien cadets looked on in awe, some nervous, some inspired, some humbled. Even veterans who had trained for decades could not hide the respect in their eyes. They had witnessed something remarkable. One human, quiet and unassuming, had controlled a predator that had eluded their combined skills. The instructor finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. This is why humans are exceptional. Not because they are the strongest, not because they are the fastest, not because they are the most aggressive. They survive because they see, they think, they wait, and they act with perfect timing. This is why they endure. Lucy continued to watch the predator. She had led it into the containment field with a single precise move. She had anticipated every reaction, every twitch, every attempt to escape. She had turned its strength into her advantage. And in doing so, she had shown what it truly meant to survive. Around her, the room was silent, filled with awe, disbelief, and respect. Even the most experienced cadets understood something new. One human, calm, patient, and intelligent, could accomplish what dozens could not. The predator thrashed one last time and then settled, confined but unharmed. Lucy's eyes remained steady. She had done her part. She had acted with precision, patience, and understanding. The lesson was clear. Strength could be measured in muscles and weapons, yes, but intelligence and observation could achieve what brute force never could. The simulation ended with a soft hum as the lights dimmed slightly and the glowing containment field faded. The predator remained inside, alive, but completely neutralized. The room, which had been buzzing with panic, confusion, and shouts just moments ago, was now silent. Even the hum of the equipment seemed softer, as though the room itself was catching its breath. Lucy leaned back in her chair, her eyes still steady on the predator. She did not smile, though a quiet satisfaction lingered inside her. She had done what no one else could. She had controlled the predator without weapons, without speed, without flashy attacks. She had used patience, observation, and understanding. And it had worked. Her classmates, the alien cadets who had spent years training for moments like this, whispered among themselves. Some looked at her with wide eyes, their voices low and shaky. Alaric muttered, I can't believe it. One human, just one. Syrah's tail flicked nervously as she shook her head. She didn't even touch it directly, didn't use fire, didn't use poison, didn't even trap it properly. And it worked, it really worked. Even the veterans, cadets who had faced countless dangerous simulations and creatures more aggressive than this predator, could not hide their awe. Some of them were quietly leaning back in their chairs, muttering softly, unable to speak words that would explain what they had just seen. One elder cadet, known for his sharp mind and critical nature, finally whispered, "That human, she sees the world differently. She understands differently." The instructor stood at the front of the room, green eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He observed Lucy, a quiet smile forming across his sharp features. "Humans," he said softly, as if speaking to the room and himself at the same time, "are unusual in ways that are difficult to describe. They survive not because they are stronger than other species, not because they are faster, not because they are braver. They survive because they see, they think, they wait, and they ask the right questions." The cadets looked at him, puzzled, but he continued. "Most species act on instinct, on fear, on the first solution that comes to mind. Humans, they pause. They observe. They consider. And when they act, it is not a blind action. It is a calculated decision, often precise and terrifyingly effective." Lucy listened quietly, her hands resting lightly on the console in front of her. She had always known that humans were different, in small ways at least. From early on, humans had survived on strange planets, in unpredictable climates, against creatures and forces that would have destroyed almost any other species. She had been taught patience, observation, and reasoning in ways that were not always understood by others. And now, in the middle of this simulation, she had proven it. Alaric finally stepped forward, voice low but trembling. "I don't understand how she did it. All of us, all of our combined training, and yet one human, she..." His words trailed off. He shook his head. "She just sees things differently." Syrah's tail curled around her feet nervously. "It's like, she's not afraid. Not of the predator, not of making a mistake. She watches and it's like the predator is a puzzle. And she solves it." The instructor's gaze softened slightly as he looked at Lucy. "You did not just trap a creature. You taught them a lesson. You taught them that survival is not just about strength. It is about perception, patience, and thought. It is about asking questions that others do not even consider." Lucy looked down at her hands for a moment. Her mind replayed the simulation. Every movement of the predator, every pause, every twitch of its claws. She realized that she had done more than control the creature. She had learned from it, and in turn, it had reacted to her understanding. In that silent exchange, she had seen a truth about survival that was older than any species, older than weapons, older than training. Survival wasn't about fighting harder. Survival wasn't about running faster or attacking stronger or shouting louder. Survival was about thinking, understanding, and acting at the precise moment. And humans, they had a knack for that. Lucy looked up at the room, her calm eyes meeting those of her classmates. There was a mixture of respect and unease in their gazes. They admired what she had done, but there was also a quiet fear. One human, unassuming, had outperformed them all. One human had used the simplest tools, patience, observation, and understanding, and succeeded where their combined weapons and training had failed. The instructor's voice broke the silence. Remember this, cadets. Strength is temporary. Speed is temporary. Even instincts can be outmatched. But the mind endures. And humans, they know how to use it better than almost any species I have observed. The cadets nodded slowly, some murmuring in agreement. Some still looked doubtful, but even they could not ignore what they had just seen. Lucy had shown them that there was more to survival than raw power. There was strategy, there was calculation, and there was the ability to see the world in a different way. Lucy's thoughts wandered briefly. She thought about every predator humans had faced, every challenge, every danger. Humans had survived on worlds where nothing else could. They had adapted, learned, and anticipated. And they had done it quietly, without fanfare, without aggression. Just understanding, patience, and thought. The instructor stepped closer to Lucy, his eyes still gleaming. You have done more than complete the simulation. You have reminded us why humans are rare, why they endure, why they survive. Not because of strength. Not because of speed. But because they ask questions that others never think to ask. Lucy nodded slightly, a quiet acknowledgement of his words. She did not boast. She did not demand praise. She had simply done what came naturally to her, what humans had always done when facing impossible odds. They saw the world differently. They asked different questions. And that made all the difference. Alaric finally whispered, almost to himself, "It's unsettling. One human, and she can do what dozens of us cannot." Syrah nodded slowly, her tail curling around her feet. "We need to think differently. Maybe we need to watch, to wait, to understand like she does." Lucy stayed quiet, letting them absorb the lesson. She realized that survival was not just about reacting to danger. It was about understanding the danger, learning from it, predicting it, and acting when the time was right. That was the edge humans had, and it was one that no one could take away. The predator in the simulation thrashed softly inside its containment field, testing the boundaries, but Lucy paid it little attention. Her mind was on what had been proven, what had been taught silently to all of the cadets in the room. Humans were patient. Humans were clever. Humans saw opportunities where others only saw threats. Her classmates, once noisy and frantic, now whispered quietly among themselves. Some still looked uneasy, unsure of how to measure themselves against a human who had achieved the impossible. Some looked inspired, thinking of how they could apply her lesson in future simulations and battles. The instructor finally broke the silence one last time. "This is not the end of your training. But remember what you have learned today. Observe, think, wait, and act with precision. Humans have shown us the value of the mind over raw power. And that lesson is worth more than any weapon in this room." Lucy nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. She had learned something too. She had learned that survival was not about being the strongest. It was about asking the right question first, and humans had always been good at that. It was instinct, it was thought, it was patience, and it was the thing that had kept them alive through impossible worlds and unimaginable dangers. Her classmates continued to whisper, some in awe, some in fear, some with quiet admiration. They had seen a truth that would stay with them for the rest of their training. Humans were not to be underestimated. They survived differently. They thought differently. They asked questions others never thought to ask, and that made them dangerous in ways few could understand. Lucy looked at the predator one last time before turning to the instructor. She did not speak. She did not need to. The demonstration, the lesson, and the understanding were all clear in the room. Humans had survived. Humans had taught a silent lesson to an entire class of experienced cadets. And she had been the one to show them.